Focus, focus. There we go. The governor and we were all doing it. That failed. Yeah. I don't know why, but it failed. Okay. The governor and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? And the significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, that we need to create these jobs. And there's such great significance to the passage of time that we think about a day in the life of our children and what that means to the future of our country. That is your Democratic nominee, and probably her most logical statement ever. I'm utterly amazed that she can actually walk around and chew bubblegum at the same time. Everything over here got completely closed down because I suck at my job. I'm the worst.
Of Castle Curmudgeon, where our Olympics only have one event, and it's called slaying your enemies in battle, seeing them driven before you, and hearing the lamentations of their women. Shit, I guess that's 3 events, but that's not important now. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. So glad you could join us this evening. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization news roundup for the work week ending 2 August 2024. Dateline Gay Pelly, Monday, 29 July. After the worldwide disgust and mockery that greeted the homosexual burlesque show that passed for this year's Olympic opening ceremony, the official Olympic YouTube channel quietly deleted the video of the event earlier this week and began copyright claiming other channels for using any part of it, which, let's call things what they are. It may be a few years since YouTube started hiding the number of downvotes that a video gets, but there are still ways in which one can read between the lines, like, for example, if the Olympic YouTube channel tries to memory hold the entire Olympic opening ceremony, if it deletes the whole thing and tries to ban any mention of it, it's probably safe to say that damn thing got ratioed into oblivion. In fact, it's pretty close to an unavoidable conclusion when you get right down to it. It's not the sort of thing a content creator does with a piece of content they are proud to have created. It's the sort of thing a content creator does when they did a random drunk live stream at 2 o'clock in the morning in which they bent over and farted out Michael Jackson's greatest hits and then had no recollection of it until they woke up and found out 50,000 people had just unsubscribed. It's not the way one behaves when one is overflowing with pride in the quality of one's artistic output, which is weird because why be so ashamed? Why cower in the face of homophobia and intolerance? The story we heard in the immediate aftermath of this repulsive display was that it was a beautiful celebration of art and culture. It was in no way intended as an affront to anybody's religious views, and anybody who was offended by it is just a right-wing extremist fuddy-duddy with an irrational hatred of big, fat, hairy drag queens. The mainstream fake news media even took a break from singing the praises of Kamala Harris in order to sign the memo that said, yes, this ceremony was a beautiful, lovely piece of art, edifying in the extreme, not an exposed testicle out of place. And anybody who didn't love it must be some sort of freak or weirdo or deviant. And then the next morning, the memo came down, as it often does, that no, we are shifting immediately from this was the greatest thing ever and we love it unconditionally into nope, that thing never happened. Shut your crazy conspiracy theorist mouth. Shifting from one mode to the other because that's the way that wokesters process their grief. Denial, then anger, then bargaining, then wild, disingenuous celebration, then flush that thing right down the memory hole right now, goddammit. The hell are you talking about? There was no opening ceremony at the 2024 Olympics. There were no fat, hairy drag queens parodying the Last Supper. What the hell are you talking about? You get lost with your weird QAnon fantasies before I call the sheriff, you weirdo. Stop being so freaking weird. Black George Washington, would you like to do this one? Why, yes, Cap, my show enough the fuck would. Dateline Atlanta, Tuesday, 30 July. Vice President Kamala Harris, who, if being black means having black American ancestors, is less black than Captain Curmudgeon's Cracker-Beckerwood ass. She done tried to do a black accent this week at a speech in Atlanta, and it didn't go too goddamn well. Bitch done sounded like she grew up in the richest neighborhood in French fucking Canada. She'd come up on them mean, gang-infested streets of Montreal, baby. Rocking out on a Walkman to 11-year-old Biggie and Tupac, y'all. Because when you think of authentic American blackness, ain't but three names that come to mind. Martin Luther King, Jackie Robinson, Kamala Harris. And there was a lot of folks on social media claiming to be black who said they weren't all that impressed with Kamala's fake black accent. They'd be making jokes about how she be suffering from sudden onset urban access syndrome and all that kind of shit. They saying the only reason any black people came to this here rally was to hear some twerking rapper do a song about their vagina. Know what I say to them people? They ain't black. They clearly some crack-ass imposter trying to stir up a whole bunch of nonsense. Now you take it from Black George Washington. Ain't nothing more presidential than having your warm-up act sing a song about their vagina. And ain't nothing blacker than a rich girl from Canada with 0 black American ancestors saying we gonna win in 2024, baby. Oh, hell no. Don't you even say nothing about no cultural appropriation. It's called code switching, y'all. Ain't nobody don't understand that. That's some racist crack-ass KKK motherfuckers. What I'm trying to say here, peoples, is that Kamala Harris is a beautiful black Nubian goddess. She's so black, she done married a Jewish motherfucker. Don't get much blacker than that. She's so black, she make Malcolm X look like Wally Cleaver. She's so black, you put her next to Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg look like a fucking albino and shit. I'm Black George Washington. I ain't never done steered you wrong. See you next time. Back to your regular cracker-ass Peckerwood host. Peace out, bitches.
My bad.
George Washington, you've given us a lot to think about. Dateline Chicago, Wednesday, 31 July. Former President Donald Trump accepted an invitation to appear at the convention of the National Association of Black Journalists this week, and it went pretty much like you would expect. Trump acted like Trump, the black journalists made fools of themselves, and the fake news media spent the rest of the week talking about how racist Trump is, which they probably would have been doing anyway. If you've seen the video, and I expect many of you have, Trump comes out, he takes his seat, and this is the part of the proceedings where ordinarily the journalists on the panel would say, "Thank you, President Trump, for being with us today." But not this bunch. No. And I don't remember the chick's name, and I don't want to give her the dignity of looking it up, but I think she works with ABC News. And she sounds like she's an extra from an 80s Valley Girl movie, as most female reporters and politicians do these days. But damn it, our girl does not have any time for things like civility or respect or basic social decorum. Trump's posterior has barely touched his chair before she launches into a question that contained much sound and fury, but the essence of it was, "Why are you such a big, mean, racisty racist, you racist man?" And then Trump, quite rightly, calls her out for being rude. Now, does this chick live in a world where putting on a display like this bolsters her credibility as a journalist? I'm old enough to remember, because I was born more than 5 minutes ago, a time when a journalist speaking to a former president like this, that would have resulted in the journalist's immediate firing. When the former and likely future leader of the free world agrees in good faith to accept an invitation to your event, and you greet him with a question that amounts to, "You're the worst person in the world, prove me wrong," not only have you made a preening, attention whoring fool of yourself, but you forfeited for all time the right to be called a journalist by any serious person. You see, sweetheart, it isn't your choice whether or not to show respect to the former president of the United States. He is entitled to that respect by virtue of his station, irrespective of whether you, in your capacity as a private individual, deem him worthy of it. If you want to disrespect the ex-president, get a different job. As long as you're purporting to be a professional journalist and drawing a paycheck from an alleged news organization, you forego the right to make that choice. You are obliged, non-negotiably, to show respect toward certain people and institutions, whether you actually respect them or not. Not very long ago, every person who chose the news business for their profession understood this. And then Donald Trump happened. Dateline Washington, Thursday, 1 August. President Joe Biden, and I know it's easy to forget, but he is allegedly still the president, if indeed he ever was, tried to portray himself as a master of international diplomacy this week after he swapped out a handful of spies and murderers in exchange for a handful of innocent American hostages. And am I the only one who gets the feeling like the Biden administration doesn't really appreciate the power imbalance they create when they do deals like this? Because this isn't the first one of these. There was also the swap of America-hating lesbian WNBA player who got popped taking weed into Russia in exchange for international master of espionage. And of course, obviously, anybody who pointed out the power imbalance in that deal was immediately shouted down as a terrible bigot who hates 6'9" weed-smoking black lesbians. When will we finally have justice for the WSBL community? Well, I can't say. I just know it cannot come soon enough. Because it's a really great message that we're sending to Russia and Putin when we keep cutting deals like this. I mean, why not just stop beating around the bush and send him a fancy letter on fancy letterhead that says, "Dearest Comrade Vladimir, please continue abducting random American tourists and journalists and jailing them indefinitely. We will be happy to let you keep trading them for actual bad people who are in our custody because they committed actual crimes in service of your government." And aren't the Democrats supposed to be the party that hates those damn dirty Ruskies with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns? Because they've got a hell of a funny way of showing it, is all I'm saying. And it really makes my chest swell with pride seeing National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who, fun fact, got his current post because he did such a splendid job on the cover-up of the Hunter's laptop story. It was probably the closest thing to an alpha male in this whole cartoonishly pussified, feminized administration. It was great to see him squirting tears all over the podium because he did such a great job of getting a swirly from Vladimir Putin. Have you ever seen so many incompetent people engage in such brazen acts of self-congratulation? Yeah, me either. Dateline Paris, Friday, 2 August. What's the hottest event drawing the most public attention at this year's wokest Olympics ever? It is dudes punching women in the face. I know it wouldn't have been my guess either, but like Captain Jack Aubrey once said, what a fascinating modern age we live in. I expect most of you will have heard by now that a certain alleged woman from Morocco, despite being banned by the International Boxing Federation for obviously being a fucking dude, gained headlines for breaking the nose of an Italian opponent this week, an actual woman, no less, who retired from the match after 46 seconds in order to avoid being killed. This guy has now advanced yet farther in the bracket, as one might expect, since he's a dude having a punching contest against ladies. And there's also a Taiwanese competitor who is very obviously a big hulking dude, but is also being allowed by the IOC to compete against women for reasons that are really anybody's guess. Now, is it inherently disgusting and revolting to watch a woman being pummeled about the head and upper torso by a man? Yes, it very much is. But here's where I'm going to get controversial and say a thing that people keep yelling at me for saying, but I am going to keep right on saying it anyway. Watching a woman get punched in the face by any opponent of either sex is inherently disgusting and revolting. And societies that make sport of such things probably shouldn't call themselves civilized. Women's boxing and women's MMA are two of the most upsetting things I have ever attempted to watch. To take pleasure in seeing a woman get pummeled is contrary to every instinct I have in my body as a man whose father raised him to be a gentleman. I am supposed to prevent women from getting brutalized. I am not supposed to revel in it. And I know all the counter arguments. I have heard them all in the last few days. I know they're doing it voluntarily, and girls should have the same athletic opportunities and men and all of that stuff, and I'm fine with it. I don't even disagree. I'm saying that a healthy, civilized, well-ordered society is one where only men make sport of pummeling each other with their fists. I'm saying perhaps it might be prudent to contemplate from time to time the possibility that maybe once in a while gender-based double standards are good and proper things. What do you think, Jim Eagle? Was this the most controversial news roundup ever? I trust we've given the chat plenty of things to talk about, but now it's that time when the captain leaves the bridge and passes the con to my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the dominant hominid himself, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius, where we plot the actual physical decline of Western civilization in real time. I could try to tell you to go check Twitter to try to find out who's got the pulse on the American generation of current, but you really don't have to. All you have to do is go to whitehouse.com and check out what's cool today, and they'll tell you straight up right there in black and white exactly what you're supposed to believe. All right, I have with us tonight everybody in the lineup. So let's get everybody in the right spot.
Hello, audience.
Juicy J, appreciate you coming through again. This is absolutely awesome. Do you have a story in particular you'd like to approach tonight, or even a monologue?
So I don't particularly have any one story, but I do want to go a bit into the Kamala Harris situation. So I just want to give sort of my own 2 cents in regards to a couple of things that I've been talking about. And for those of you who may or may not be my viewers, you probably have seen a couple of the talking points revolving around Kamala Harris. In fact, I've brought up stories that are about her and adjacent to her over the course of the past 2 weeks. One of which, of course, is going to be the fact that Kamala Harris, without receiving a single vote during the primaries, has been able to secure the Democrat nomination for the presidency. Now, this is something interesting because this is, of course, surrounded around a mountain of identity politics, 2 of which, of course, are the most obvious. One being the fact that she is a woman, and the fact that nearly every female journalist, politician, political pundit that you could think of course, has brought up that Kamala Harris is a woman. The second, of course, is the biggest of the elephants in the room, which are that Kamala Harris is a woman who happens to be a black woman. Now, is she actually a black woman? Of course, that's one of the biggest things that we have to talk about. Why? Because as I've gone through the rounds on the YouTube, and I've talked to a lot of my viewers, for those of you who don't know, happen to actually come from that sector. Nearly 90% of them have had to guess, and when I say 90% of them, I'll assume 9 of every 10 that I've talked to has unanimously agreed that they don't claim her. In fact, She's never claimed them. If you look at multiple articles, videos, clips of who she was when she was coming up in her political career, she never once mentioned that she was black. In fact, there are videos, verified videos, and clips of her, not only when it comes to her political career, but also in her personal life, claiming only her Indian heritage. A couple of days ago, I even saw a video of her father when he was giving a political conference. Now, if you actually look at her father, he does in fact look like he could be what you would consider a black man. However, what they don't tell you is the fact that he may very well be a mixed man, given his complexion and the way that he looks. Of course, if you were to look at a deeper history of who her father was, you'd also know that apparently he is a man who is not ethnically Jamaican, but he was only nationally Jamaican, meaning he was born there. Her mother, in fact, was ethnically and nationally Indian. If you look at some of her older photos, you will see that she was raised Indian. If you listen to some of her older interviews talking about her family life, she acknowledges she was raised Indian. However, over the course of the past year, there seems to be this strange shift between her being Indian to her now being black. A very interesting thing nonetheless that was also brought up by Captain Curmudgeon a minute ago with the Rachel Scott interview. Rachel Scott, of course, who was one of the people who were at the NABJ conference that we both saw Donald Trump attend. Now, of course, the Donald Trump conference, the conference rather that Donald Trump was at, he brings up a good point because all throughout her political career, she has never once claimed this part of her heritage. In fact, this is a very recent thing. And for those of you who don't know, from last year, she even had a video that she did with her husband explaining the events of Kwanzaa that she would attend every year with her family. Her family, of course, has not verified this. These are two of the biggest things I brought up with Kamala Harris, and I think that they really need to be talked about because for someone who didn't even get a single vote during the primaries to come out and be able to latch on to identity politics so hard, and to not only latch onto them so hard, but to also rally so many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to believe this, and to shatter records with the amount of money that she's received over the course of the past month, this is very convenient. And in my opinion, and I've also the opinion of those who I've spoken with, this seems like a sign of desperation from the Democrat Party for them scrambling to find the candidate that checks off the most boxes to try and curtail the Trump campaign juggernaut. Guys, what do you think?
We're witnessing a really fascinating and unprecedented thing here because we're going to have a major party presidential nominee who never would have wound up in that position in a million years as the result of any sort of democratic process. And that's going to be an extremely big problem for her. And one thing that I'm currently struck by and that's the reason I posted this article in the private chat that's up on the screen right now. We all know that Kamala Harris has a pretty thin electoral history, but you don't maybe realize just how shockingly thin it is unless you go and look at it, because here's the fact of the matter. She has only ever won one general election in her own right in which she had a Republican opponent. That was the 2010 California Attorney General race, which she won by 0.8 of 1 percentage point. She did win a Senate election, but it was after California had instituted the jungle primary, so she had no Republican opponent. It was her versus Loretta Sanchez, another Democrat. So that doesn't even count. And the elections when she was running for San Francisco district attorney, that's a nonpartisan office. So there was never a Republican opponent there either. So it's only one election that she has ever won in her own right, and it was by less than a percentage point, even though she's a California Democrat. And that's a really kind of a good illustration of the position the Democrats have placed themselves into, I think.
So what I find most interesting in terms of the Democrats is the fact that not only have the sponsorships that were closed off to the Biden candidacy reopened, new sponsorships opened up, as I mentioned before, with the flooding of resources. But it's more than just that. It's the fact that the outpour of support from Kamala has been not only overwhelming, but instantaneous, to the point that if you look at the previous political pundits who were, of course, defending and caping for the Biden presidency, have overnight flipped their script and started talking about how incompetent.
Oh, there was a very, very orgasmic mass sugar high that they all underwent when they had the burden lifted of no longer having to pretend they like Joe Biden. And of course that would happen.
But of course, they're talking about how incompetent and how incapable he's been in a very short amount of time. Uh, you see, what I think the reason why I think this is such a desperation attempt, them bringing in Kamala and bringing them in so fast, is more than just what happened with the downslope in optics that the Democrats have had since the election. Excuse me, since the debate. If you look at the combination of the debate and then mixed with the assassination attempt, the Trump candidacy and those who are behind him seem like they're almost unstoppable. The amount of hype behind the RNC, with the amount of star power that they had there, some of which you would not have expected 8 years ago, to be vocally showing their support for Trump, has been massive.
Yep.
I mean, if the election was to happen next month, I still believe he would fully win. I still believe he would win in a landslide. Now, of course, there's going to be some attrition because the emotion of that has worn off, and I think you're going to see more of that attrition as we get closer to the next debate, which maybe September 4th, maybe
Well,
September 10th.
and there is
Sure yet.
there is going to be a limit on the amount of time when they can keep her away from live microphones, which they're trying just very desperately to do at this point. Even harder than they were trying with Joe Biden, which is not really a great look for your party when you can't come up with a standard bearer who can speak their own native language extemporaneously without it turning into a joke comedy story about how incoherent they are. I mean, maybe work on that, guys, just as a future project is all I'm saying.
So what I look forward to seeing next is how the polls pan out. I mean, I know some people think that polls are bullshit, and I would agree with you. Yes, for the most part, polls are bullshit because if polls weren't bullshit, then of course we would have seen the landslide victory for Hillary back in 2016. Now, since Kamala has announced her candidacy, if you look at some of the key battleground states, my own included, you can see that the gap between Kamala and Donald Trump has actually shrunk to about 2 or 3 points in some states. Some states it's just over 1 point. I think you're going to see that gap possibly widen if they end up having. I'm almost sure that you're going to see the gap widen, assuming they have their first debate. Now, I actually had a very in-depth discussion yesterday in regards to this kerfuffle they're having between whether or not they're going to have the second debate on ABC or whether or not they're going to have the second debate hosted by Fox. What's interesting is that Kamala seems to think that she's entitled to having the debate at ABC, even though it wasn't her campaign that agreed upon it. It was actually the Biden campaign. All she's doing is backfilling everything that was set for Biden and pre-agreed upon between the Biden camp and the Trump camp.
She sure is acting very presumptuous for a candidate 0 people voted for. That's for damn sure.
Yes, Trump's argument is that everything that was set up was between the Trump camp and the Biden camp. Therefore, because it was switched up in the middle of the campaign, he has every right to, of course, switch things back up and renegotiate the terms of their second debate. And I actually agree with that because everything's been switched up out of nowhere. No one could have foreseen that Biden was going to have such a god-awful debate that it ended up destroying his campaign. Of course, Kamala.
Right, and the thing that got that snowball rolling downhill was Trump accepted that debate invitation when he was not supposed to.
Of course, Kamala's argument is that she shouldn't have to change up anything because all of this was predetermined and pre-agreed upon before she showed up. And of course, the media, who's mostly left-leaning, are going to get behind Kamala in this and amplify her message of course, Trump is afraid to debate me because he needs the insulation of Fox News. However, I didn't hear these complaints when Trump decided to acquiesce and agree to a debate at CNN, which is clearly going to favor Biden and clearly did favor Biden because when they decided to agree upon the rules of muting the mics, we saw that the mics were definitely muted more so for Trump than they were for Biden, especially at times when he wanted to give his rebuttals whenever Biden decided to hurl his quote-unquote facts at Trump, which of course actually didn't hurt Trump at all because all he needed to do was let Biden destroy himself. However, if the debate was to occur on Fox, I would guarantee you wouldn't see any microphone rule, and you'd probably end up seeing debate entertainment on the level of what you saw in 2016 between he and Kamala. Excuse me, between he and Hillary.
I'm having difficulty seeing what material advantage she thinks she gains by having the thing on ABC instead of, because it's not like Fox News debate moderators have a track record of being overly friendly to Trump over the last 8 years. Far from it.
So if you think about the debate between Biden and Trump, as I mentioned before, and the advantage he had is the fact that it was 3-on-1. It was two moderators in Biden versus Trump, and Trump still won. I think the advantage that she's hoping for by going to ABC is that she'll have the exact same advantage, and they'll implement this mic rule. They'll have a zero audience, because usually the more rambunctious Trump is, the more rambunctious the crowd gets, and that plays to his favor. He feeds off that energy.
Yes, and
It does over-
I thought the absence of an audience kept him more disciplined and was
Correct.
better for him than it was for Biden.
In this case, I disagree. In this case, I disagree, because I do believe that because of how bad Kamala's track record is, and because she's so easily memeable, that he will utilize this, as you saw what he did at the NABJ conference. He was in a hostile territory, in a hostile environment, and he used that energy. In fact, he used all that hate and channeled it back into charm, and used his own catty wit in order to
Yes, and
win the crowd.
he wound up with a room full of people who couldn't stop laughing, even though they
Exactly.
didn't want to laugh.
Exactly.
And it was
you'll have the same
fantastic.
exact thing, and you'll have the same exact thing in a room full of people, even if it's even if it was an ABC, if ABC allowed it. I doubt ABC will, but ABC will also implement the mic rule. On the flip side, if this was Fox, Fox would have a full crowd there. They'd make sure it was probably in a red state, in a red city, and of course there wouldn't be any microphone rule. They'd probably be more lenient on the two of them having their back and forth. And in so doing that back and forth, what's going to end up happening is Kamala's going to end up messing up, or Kamala's going to end up getting into logic traps the same way that Hillary did. And the more that was to happen in a debate, the more memeable she becomes, the more foolish she looks, and the more of those undecided voters end up seeing, wow, she really isn't the better option of the two.
The only time we've ever seen her give a good accounting of herself on the debate stage is when she was one of 8 Democrat candidates, and she was only there to attack Joe Biden, because that's the sort of thing you have to do when you're one of the fringe candidates going into these things. You have to focus on one of the main candidates and try and tear them down and make a name for yourself that way. The other unfortunate thing you have to do when you're running as a fringe candidate is you have to do just that. You have to run to the fringe. And Kamala Harris was such a bottom of the barrel candidate in 2020. She had to go to such absurd lengths to even make herself a tiny little fly speck of a blip on the radar screen, that she had to run around endorsing every single wacky fringe left-wing policy idea that the interviewer and the studio audience wanted her to be in favor of, from plastic straws to banning fracking to banning the whole smorgasbord of wacky wokesterism. She is on board as supporting, and they've been trying to walk a lot of that back in the last week, but I guess we will see how much success they have, and I hope Trump goes after her for all of it.
If you were to look at the Atlanta rally, okay, which Trump, of course, did reference again when he was in, not Montana. Actually, where was he just at? He was just in, it escapes me. I literally did a stream on it, and I can't remember where it was he was just at. But if you look at the last rally that Trump had, he mentions it was Atlanta. Oh, wow, the answer was right in my face. If you look at the Atlanta rally that Trump was just at, and the Atlanta
they
rally
were both just in Atlanta, weren't they?
They were just in Atlanta. Yes, they were just in Atlanta. That's why, answer was right in front of my face. And the Atlanta rally that Kamala Harris was at, he does bring up the point that Kamala Harris needed to utilize entertainers in order to get this crowd to stay. He brought up how after the free concert was over, that Kamala Harris's supporters ended up leaving, which goes to show you that even the way that she's operating in her campaign ends up turning into a bit of a meme. In fact, that's all anyone could talk about. If you look at the different sectors of YouTube, if you look at the different demographics that would end up voting for Kamala Harris, in fact, her doubling down on the whole "I'm one of y'all" card is really hurting her now, especially amongst Black male voters, which traditionally are usually split more towards the Democrat side, but are usually still pretty split. Trump's campaign is going to end up siphoning off more voters, in my opinion. The more that she ends up playing these cards, the more she ends up doing this in regards to her campaign. Now, personally, I'm going to get a chance to see this firsthand on Tuesday, because she's going to be campaigning in Philly. Likely, she's going to end up naming Josh Shapiro as her VP. It would make sense, because Josh Shapiro, in fact, canceled. Yes, Josh Shapiro actually canceled his event in the Hamptons. So chances are he's going to end up being named VP, and he's going to be at this event in Philly. I can't say 100% for sure, but if I was going to guess, if I was going to put money on it, that's my bet.
I look forward to seeing what that Democrat convention in Chicago is going to look like when the Democrat nominee has a Jewish husband and a Jewish running mate. I'm sure the little Hamasniks are just going to love that. Can't wait to see how it develops.
So, one other thing I want to bring up. Most of Trump's, well, at least what I've noticed from other people who debate whether or not Trump should actually be running on the ticket, a lot of them will bring up the court cases that he's been in, without acknowledging the fact that most of the court cases that he had in Georgia were thrown out after the Fani Willis or after the ruling on Fani Willis and her assistant. That the 34 convictions in New York, the 34 felony convictions, have zero bearing and are not going to affect him, and the fact that the documents, the court case that he had with the documents, was also thrown out. That apparently wasn't very publicized. So whenever I hear this argument that Trump, because he's a quote unquote convicted felon, shouldn't be on the ticket, and the fact that he has so many other court cases on him, a lot of people don't seem to understand that the vast majority of these court cases aren't going to hurt him. In fact, every court case he deals with, every case against him is only going to strengthen his position. Not only is it going to strengthen his position, but I think the more you see the left attack that aspect, they're going to end up swinging over more voters who are on the fence. And it's actually going to end up being a benefit to him at the end.
And people like the people you describe, I think, are willfully blind to the fact that the Joe Biden administration has taken more political prisoners than all peacetime presidents in history combined. And that's a fact about the world.
So switching gears here, I want to bring up what happened at the Olympics. So at the Olympics, of course, we saw during the ceremony a bunch of people worldwide. We're talking billions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of people worldwide saw the event that you mentioned with the dinner full of drag queens. Of course, the long spread table. In fact, drag queens were sprinkled all throughout the event. LGBTQ was sprinkled all throughout the event. Now, the Olympic Committee did, in fact, bring up a statement about this. One of their spokespeople actually came up and mentioned that the portrayal they had wasn't actually supposed to be the Last Supper. They claim it was supposed to be Feast of the Gods, which comes from a 1700s Dutch painting, or 18th century Dutch painting. Normally,
funny how that story only arose after the massive public backlash.
Exactly. Normally, I would give a story like that the benefit of the doubt. However, I'm not going to at this point because there were too many other references sprinkled throughout that ceremony which directly reference Christianity. Directly reference it. A lot of this was hidden. Some people may have not caught it, but of course you have the spread, the table that looks eerily similar to Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. You have the pale horse the rider was running on. I believe someone mentioned one more thing of someone who was wearing a mask. I think that portrayed a symbol that they said was akin to a symbol of the Antichrist. I could be mistaken on that one, but apparently there were many examples that were sprinkled throughout the entirety of that event. I do find it interesting that very quickly they were able to do a lot of damage control on this, although I do believe the damage is done. I haven't watched any of the Olympics, but that's more so just out of lack of interest. I do think that
when they pulled down the video off the YouTube channel, that was the coup de grace right there. That told us all we needed to know.
Oh yeah. I do think they're going to start losing more sponsors. There apparently was a telecommunications sponsor from out of France, a major telecommunications sponsor from out of France that pulled their funding and pulled their sponsorship and claimed they're no longer going to be supporting the Olympics. So I don't know if that backlash will spread any farther. Maybe this is the start of something new, although I do kind of doubt it.
I'm curious to see how disastrous the TV ratings are for NBC, and I don't even really know how you would measure that anymore, since you've got avenues of viewing that are far beyond broadcast. You've got all different platforms and what, but I have to think it's going to be pretty disastrous in the United States, at least.
Now, I think I brought this up. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I think I brought this up beforehand, whether it was on this channel or on my channel. I do find it interesting that they had an event like this in Paris, which they planned out. And this coincided so closely to after the Paris elections. And if you remember not, but a few weeks ago, the Paris elections were very close. Marine Le Pen's party could have won. Marine Le Pen, of course, is considered to be the ultra far right nationalist party. Her father, of course, used to be president of the party before she kicked him out. So I do find it interesting. I'm sure that this ceremony was planned out months, if not years in advance to happen the way it did in Paris. But the timing of it so close to an election, which a lot of people do find interesting, and of course, I think it's also interesting as well. The U.S. had such a vested interest in how France's elections turned out. It is a bit of a smack in the face, though, to those who are holding towards traditionally right, conservative, and uh, nationalist values. End
Yeah,
up
which
getting a
up
smack in the
until 5
face.
minutes ago, we used to just call those normal people.
Exactly. But they end up getting a smack in the face by seeing their capital city, the capital of their country, on the biggest stage in the world, get slapped in the face with this, a ceremony like this. And by the way, guys, France has a long history of being Catholic, an extremely long Catholic history.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
You know, not to mention the fact that you couple in the immigrant crisis that they have going on in France, the amount of riots that they've had going on in France, the farmers' riots that they've had going on in France, the fact that France right now is embroiled in a proxy war with Ukraine, with
The papacy
Russia
was actually
involving
based
Ukraine.
in France for a few hundred years at one
Exactly.
point.
So France is really embroiled in a whole lot of shit, even before you look at what happened with the Olympics. I just find it very interesting that you couple all that together and then you have a show out like that for their opening ceremony.
And it's a point I often come back to as far as the modern version of woke leftism being a worldview that permits no limiting principles whatsoever. And you often, when you have a worldview with no limiting principles, you often wind up doing things just for the sake of doing them, just to demonstrate that you have no limiting principles. And oftentimes it winds up just devolving to indiscriminate assaults on anything that is perceived to be ancient or traditional or normative. Like, a good example is the idiots who dumped orange paint on Stonehenge. What the hell did Stonehenge do to anybody? What the hell did the builders of Stonehenge do to anybody? I'm pretty sure the Neolithic age British druids were not burning a whole lot of fossil fuels when they put the thing up. So what the hell are you doing? And I think ultimately it is all a function of an increasingly incoherent worldview that knows absolutely no boundaries or limiting principles, and you just break stuff for the sake of breaking it because you are the intellectual equivalent of an infant throwing his toys out of the pram.
One other point about the Olympics, I think that it is so progressive and it is so forward thinking that we are allowing equality to take root. We are allowing equality to fully be equal. Listen, I brought this up before on my channel. Men are just so great at everything. Men are even better at being women. In fact, men are even better at being women in women's sports.
Yes.
In fact, I just think it's amazing that
Because the ultimate expression of feminism is going
inclusion.
into the ladies' locker room and
Mhm.
seeing penises everywhere.
The ultimate expression of feminism. This was the dream of diversity, equity, inclusion. This is equality. Finally, we have reached a point of equality to where we are so equal. We see that men are just amazing at doing all the things that women can do. In fact, even being better at women than their own sports in their own categories. I just find it to be so forward thinking that we have a society like this and that we can appreciate all of the diversity, all of the egalitarianism. This really is a win for democracy and a true blow against the powers of bigotry.
Yes. And in 15 years from now, when every individual record in women's sports is owned by a dude, we can all high five each other and say, "Take that, patriarchy."
Down with the patriarchy. Oh my goodness. Down
That'll
with the
show them.
patriarchy. That'll show them. That'll really show them, patriarchal bastards. Because let's be honest, the only way a woman's going to be able to get the equality she needs in this world is if she allows a man in her space.
We'll wave our big lady balls right in their faces.
That did it right there. That showed them. Amazing. Oh, wow.
So,
ha- go ahead.
I'm curious to know what the both of you think about my take on women's boxing.
I have never had a
'Cause
problem with
I
women's
mean,
MMA.
let's ask the 30,000-foot question: should women's
Uh,
boxing exist? Analyze.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with it personally. I don't have a problem with women's boxing or MMA. In fact, if you watch, and I'm still a UFC fan. I still watch UFC from time to time. Women's UFC fights do tend to be more entertaining in terms of striking. Men tend to go to the ground more. They tend to use more wrestling and tend to use more BJJ. Whereas women tend to use less ground technique and use more striking. In fact, a lot of the women are usually bantam to straw weight, and because of that, their strikes are much more fast. So you'll see more flurries of blows. It can be entertaining. As far as women's boxing is concerned, it's basically non-existent. The only big names in combat sports I know of have come from MMA. Maybe
I
you could
don't
say
remember
Clarissa Shields.
ever even hearing of women's boxing until Layla
Clarissa
Ali,
Shields, probably.
which
Oh, well, Layla.
was
Okay,
probably
Layla.
right around the turn of the
Yeah,
century.
yeah, Layla
Yeah.
Ali, of course. But I mean, the contemporary would be Clarissa Shields. But even then, she's becoming more popular because of the fact that she's made a debut in the MMA space. Go ahead, Sasquatch.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with him. Layla Ali was when I became personally aware of women's boxing. Previous to that, I had kind of thought it was a bunch of photographs and that it was all a sham. There weren't any actual women fights. But then I found out there actually were women fights, and they beat the
Yeah,
ever
and
living
it seemed
snot out of
weird. It took a lot of getting used to, just the whole idea of women doing that.
So let me ask you this:
I'm still not over that obstacle.
how do you feel about lingerie football?
In
It's the only
favor.
real fantasy football. It's the only real fantasy football.
Yep.
That's all it is.
All
All
right,
right.
all right.
Didn't they have to
So-
change? Didn't they have to change the name of the league because the word lingerie was too sexist? I
can't
remember
they
hearing
change it
something
to?
about that.
What did they change it to? I'm wondering what they
I
would have
think
changed
Legends
it to.
Football League or something. Let me look it up right
What?
now.
Yeah, please do,
wow.
because I do know. Listen. I've watched a game or two, and I mean, outside of the novelty, you do get bored with it.
No, I
It
mean,
does get very boring to watch. And I'll be real with you. Like, yeah, great. These chicks are in lingerie. They have great bodies. They're usually, fairly attractive for the most part. But all they do is run the ball inside of an arena-style football field. They very rarely ever throw the ball. When they do, it's usually very piss poor. Not only that, but when you listen to the announcing, they don't even call themselves all league. They call themselves all fantasy players. There's a
Okay,
weird
I
quirk to
got
it.
the answer.
Go ahead.
It was from 2009 to 2012. It was the Lingerie Football League. It was the Legends Football League from 2013 to 2019, and it is currently called the Extreme Football League.
The XFL already exists, though. There's already an XFL.
Yeah,
There really
I
is.
guess
Actually. That's the one that.
the shorthand name is the X League.
Yeah, but that's the one that Vince McMahon actually made, and then subsequently was sold or bought by Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He ended up
Owner
buying
of the league, Coach Mike Ditka.
Are you serious?
Serious.
Wow, wouldn't have guessed that one. Oh wow, I would not have guessed that one. No, I really wouldn't have. But there are some decent secondary football leagues out there. Like the Arena Football League is still pretty good. The Alliance of American Football, I think that's the only other one that's around right now.
There are currently
the
8
AAF.
teams in the league: the Arizona Red Devils, the Atlanta Empire, the Austin Sound, the Chicago Blitz, the Denver Rush, the Kansas City Force, the Los Angeles Black Storm. That's a fun one. And the Seattle Thunder.
Nice.
What the hell is a Black Storm?
I don't want to know. We're not discussing it. We're way too light skinned. Just saying, bro. Like that. I'm not even sure it's safe to do Black George Washington, but I think it's the most hilarious thing I've heard come out of YouTube in like the last month or so, at least. So
I'm glad Black George Washington got to make an appearance tonight.
It's beautiful, baby. So you hear about the swim in the Seine? Was it triathlon?
You mean the world famous Paris poop water?
Right? Yeah, this is water that was
Welcome
so
to
vile,
Paris. Please enjoy our world famous poop water.
The individual swimmers involved in the event not only came out vomiting, but also came out describing the
Yes.
experience, and you can't
Yes.
find anything on it anywhere in the news. I have been looking, and the only source I can find of it is Twitter.
Yeah, I saw a video of a dude puking his ever loving guts out. I have never seen a man vomit up that much stuff in my entire life. That was
Yeah, I saw that
freaking
too. Actually, my
crazy.
girl, when we were out to lunch, actually, my girl was telling me about that. That there was a guy from who swam in the River Seine who was dealing with a really bad case of the flux coming out of that water.
Mhm.
Now, of course, what we were theorizing was that the water was polluted. It
Yes,
probably had a lot of pollutants in
it
there
is.
because if you know anything about France, they have the most nuclear factories in the world in terms of power output. And it makes me wonder if you have, I believe that close to 30% of their power output comes from nuclear power plants, which makes me wonder how much of that is getting illegally dumped into their water supply vis-a-vis the River Seine.
And you have to counterbalance that with the fact that even back in the Middle Ages, people who were visiting Paris, people who didn't bathe a dozen times in their entire lives thought Paris was a notoriously filthy city. So take that for what you will.
It takes a lot to be renowned for being funky.
Mm-hmm. To have world
And
famous poop water that you make world class athletes swim in. It's kind of cruel,
right.
man. I
Well,
wouldn't be surprised if there were lawsuits that result from
Yeah, I
that.
I would be
more than
expecting
likely, yeah.
many, many lawsuits in the very near future for the people
Because
involved in this.
because that's a pretty severe health hazard to make people undergo just in order to compete in their chosen event. That's
It's to save money. They didn't want to utilize a more distant source. Instead, they used what they had nearby basically to cut corners and save money. That is the only explanation for anyone thinking that was acceptable.
well, and I'm sure you've both heard also about the massive numbers of athletes from many nations who have fled the Olympic Village and gone to get
Yes.
hotel rooms because they
Yes.
can't stand the lack of air conditioning and the stupid cardboard beds and the 65% vegan food. They thought it would be a great idea to serve 65% fucking vegan food to world-class
That's
athletes in
insane,
the
bro.
Olympic Village. World-class
See, this
athletes
is
who
when
probably need to eat lots of protein and
yes.
don't have much use for a goddamn 65% vegan
Yeah,
diet. Just the
this is when this is when implementing like your liberal policies goes wrong. When you actually put it to real life application, you realize it just won't do.
yeah, funny how that
People
happens.
people want real food. People want real food. They want their creature comforts. They want the amenities that are bad for the environment. We want these things. Everyone wants these things. You know, everyone's all progressive and all about eating bugs and sleeping on cardboard until they actually have to do it. And they experience how terrible it is. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
understand this. This is meant to
it's a
be
woke wonderland. You're gonna sleep on
exactly.
cardboard. You're gonna have no air conditioning, and you're gonna eat bugs and dirt. It'll be great.
This Olympics was meant to be like a cornerstone or like a poster child for how globalism's ideology was supposed to work and how all the big names, all the major athletes from throughout the world would not only support it, but they would embrace it. And you're just seeing the complete opposite. This is a terrible showing from a city like Paris, of all places. That's such a world-renowned city, such a well-known major city. You know, Sasquatch, I almost think that you had it right last. I think you had it right last time we spoke that Paris is not just a blue city; it's an ultraviolet city of how far left
Yeah,
it is,
it's
bro.
almost
That's a good assessment.
invisible on the spectrum, bro. This is where the whole concept of transfer of wealth gained its own life and its own pulse and blood flow, right? This is where Robespierre and the whole freaking thing really popped off. The whole Enlightenment wasn't exactly the huge leap forward everybody pretends it was.
And I called this a couple of months ago, and Squash will back me up on this. When the news first came down that they were gonna have no air conditioning in the Olympic Village and make these people sleep in freaking cardboard beds. I put it in the roundup and I said, this is not going to end well. This is going to be a fucking shit show. And I'm not going to say I was right, but I was right.
He was right.
I will say this. I will say this. Trump claims that the next Olympics is going to be held in LA, which I think would be cool to have the Olympics back in the United States, except for the fact that it's going to be held in LA.
Which
Which
really
makes me
increases
think,
my motivation
yeah,
to be no longer living in
exactly.
California by that time.
Exactly. But think about this. Do you expect much better? I guess you could say marginally. You could expect marginally better conditions uh, from having it in a city like LA. I mean, granted, I think that the culture may change a little bit because it is going to be in an American city. They are going to want that money. I don't care how left you are, you're still a capitalist. You still want to make a profit. So you may actually see the
It's
opposite direction if we end up getting the election bid. Oh, excuse me, the Olympic bid.
it's just a shame how degraded the Olympics have become as a cultural institution, because the last time the Olympics were in LA in 1984, when I was 10 years old, that was freaking awesome. The Olympic torch relay actually went right down the street I lived on. I sat at the end of my driveway on my Diamondback and watched the thing go past. It was freaking cool, and everybody in the country watched every single event for the whole 2 weeks, and we rooted our asses off for America, and nobody said jack shit about any stupid politics, and it was great. And why couldn't it just stay like that?
Because everybody's got to have an agenda, and everybody's agenda has to
Yep.
work.
And the woke mind virus metastasizes into everything and wrecks every cultural institution it touches without mercy. We really have no
Uh,
cultural
yeah.
institutions left at this point.
No, we don't. We really don't. We really don't. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sasquatch.
One of the series that I do on my channel is a short series called Odin Seas, where the concept is an ancient god decides to check on Midgard, but his only portal to see it is through a cell phone he found with TikTok. And it goes about how you would expect. But can you imagine that situation had the gods looked down from ancient Greece and seen the opening to the Olympics? What would they think?
I mean, depending on the gods,
Yeah,
you're referring to, some of them are going to be okay with it, and
what
some
is
of them
this
are going to.
civilization advertising about
Yeah,
itself?
depending on the gods you're referring to, some of them are going to be okay with it. Have you guys ever read some of the Greek mythologies? Have you
Yes,
actually
sir.
heard some of the mythologies?
Yes,
So
sir.
some
Yeah,
of them are
it
going
gets
to
it gets it gets
listen.
pretty wild.
Zeus is going to be a-okay. Aphrodite will probably be a-okay.
The
Some of these
maniac,
gods are going to be all in. Yeah, some of these are going to be all in. Some other gods
right?
are probably going to be like, "How did it get this bad?" Some other gods are going to be like,
Zeus
"No,
is a straight up pimp, dude.
excellence now."
Yeah.
Zeus-
I don't think Zeus cares one way or the other. He's
No,
not
no.
human.
Zeus would be all for it if you ever read any of his stories.
The Paris Olympics would get him going. He'd be like,
Mhm.
"Who's that sexy one?"
Oh,
in the
most
nude?"
definitely.
All the
And
chomp.
that's
You know he was a chubby chaser, right?
most definitely. Listen, did you know that he was into the whole animal play? He turned himself
That's how
into a
you ended
stork,
up
if
in
I'm not mistaken.
Minotaur.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a goose. It was a goose. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, dude, I'm
Just
telling you, man.
He's a
Some
total
gods would have been okay with it. Oh yeah, some gods would have been okay with it. Some gods would have really been okay with it. Some probably wouldn't have liked it, and some would have probably wanted to be like board wipe, board wipe, board wipe,
Yeah,
board.
you got to
wipe.
catch the right god on the right day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's take a pitch at the Norse gods on this one, right? Some of them would be really okay with it, like really. Like Loki would be so far down this rabbit
yeah.
hole you couldn't find his fluffy tail.
Oh yeah, this is
I
right
think
up
if-
Loki's alley for sure.
If you had the Norse gods that see the way that the Norwegian countries operate now, they'd probably board wipe.
Yeah,
Oh,
They're all
yeah.
most of them.
Oh, yeah.
Most of them. The vast majority of Norse gods actually are warrior gods.
yeah.
And to see the
Thor
way
would
their
definitely
descendants have operated.
TPK the whole island. He'd be
Yeah.
like, nope, strength,
That's
independence,
4 countries. Yep, that's 4 countries gone right there.
right? Just like Thanos snapped out of existence.
Exactly.
That's
Well,
I mean,
I think
look-
you can probably still salvage Iceland, but the other 3 pretty much gone.
Oh, never mind. Then it's 5 countries. On my bad. It's 5.
Oh
countries.
right, I forgot Denmark. Everybody always forgets Denmark.
Yep, it's 5 countries. Never mind.
Such a
Give me
damn
the
tiny
money.
little thing.
Give me the money, okay?
Technically, you could count. You
Thank you,
could
Anna.
count. You could count Greenland. Technically, you could. So you could say 6.
How about
Technically.
Newfoundland?
Province of Denmark, though, isn't it?
Are we going to throw in Newfoundland too? I mean,
It might
come
be,
on, man. How far are you going to stretch
I
this?
thought
train?
Newfoundland was part of Canada officially.
You're not necessarily wrong, but it
wasn't.
isn't a
It wasn't.
30-minute time zone.
It actually didn't
Hmm.
become technically part of Canada until after World War II. Most people don't know that. So Newfoundland actually sent its own troops, independent of Canada, to the 2 world wars.
Are you familiar with any Newfies?
Yes, I love
Howdy
me
at,
some
mate.
Newfies. Yep. Oh yeah, they've got one of the greatest accents in all of North America.
Oh, it's greatness itself. You want some good news?
Yes.
Are you ready? Yes. All right. So check this out. You know this. You know who this man is?
I do not. Educate me.
That's Brandon Herrera. That's Brandon Herrera.
This glorious piece of man meat in front of you.
It's Brandon Herrera.
is
Yep.
Brandon
I thought
Herrera.
that was me.
No,
No, he's a big gun
He's
tuber, dude.
other-
He's a big gun tuber. He's a huge gun tuber, in fact.
Other
And he ran
huge
for
man meat.
and he ran for a congressional seat in Texas.
Right.
Yep.
That's right.
My fault, Sasquatch. As soon as I saw him, I knew exactly who it was.
So you know why I follow Brandon Herrera? It was
Enlighten me.
not his run for Congress. It was not his YouTube career. It was not his massive gun collection. It was none of that. He notified the world that he intended to build basically the BMG AK-50, right? And I'm like, dude, that is some madness I could really get behind. And so I decided on that day that regardless of what type of YouTuber I would be, I was definitely covering the AK-50 because, oh my dear God, do I want one. This is an a AK mechanism attached to a 50 caliber round capable of destroying helicopters in flight.
You need to give the people what they want. Don't leave us all in suspense.
All
They
right,
need to
I'm
be
gonna let-
enlightened. They need to be
I'll-
enlightened to the glory of what the AK-50 really is.
Dude, I'm gonna let this man show you the completed. This is
Oh.
supposedly the model that's supposed to be on the shelf, capable of being purchased soon.
So this is just dropped since the last one of these videos we watched.
Yes, this is
Okay.
in the last what was that, a month ago maybe?
Yeah, seems like.
He said he had it all together. He was ready to do a full test run, and apparently it has taken place.
Right
Hi there.
on.
My name is Brandon Herrera, and this is my gun, the AK-50. It's been a long road making this baby come to life. But a couple months ago, after years of hard work and trial and error, we finally got the latest version fully finished. Or at least at the time.
Yep,
it felt
I
like
remember that.
I hadn't done little things like paint it or anything, so it still kind of looked like a garage-built prototype. If you haven't seen that video yet, which statistically about 5
Dear God, look at that thing, yo. Oh my God. Are you aroused? I am aroused. My nipples are hard.
It's like a video game gun, don't you think? Almost looks like
exactly
something out of
what-
Call of Duty or out of
there's-
Halo.
Yeah, that's
no-
a good call. Yeah.
hmm
There is nothing that walks or crawls the human part of this earth that's non-demon oriented that this gun is needed for.
Exactly.
It is essentially a shoulder-mounted anti-material rifle, better than, I mean, it has a cycle rate faster than the EBR. It has the stopping power of a Mod Deuce. Like, we use these things against tanks.
Amazing.
I mean, oh my
Amazing.
Lord, it is so gorgeously beautiful.
5 million of you have, which is more views than we have subscribers.
I might be 500 of
and you
those.
can help change that. But the video is kind of dramatic. You know, we went really high effort on things like the Deadpool-esque intro and things. It was my love letter to this project, having worked on it so long. But now I wanted to sit down, especially now that we've got it all nice, painted, and pretty. I want to sit down and talk about some of the things that we changed, some of the things we changed since that video. And of course, we're going to shoot it at some really fun stuff. Maybe even a cameo from our friends at Ballistic High Speed. You know, as a treat.
You
But
got
first-
to, right? You got to. What kind of muzzle velocity are we talking here? Well, it's not a sniper
I have no
rifle.
idea.
This is I know. Do what?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, this is not a sniper platform at all. I mean, I guess you could use it that way, but in its current configuration would be virtually a waste of bullets. This is designed to stop trucks. This is built
Well, yeah,
for,
and to provide a rate of fire.
right. You get 4 people carrying these and you have an equivalent rate of fire. Although I don't know how many rounds you're going to be able to carry, because I mean, that is a significant upgrade from your 7.62 by 3.9 or 6.9 for that matter.
I mean, for sniper usage, aren't all of those guys, or most all of those guys, still using bolt action?
Yeah, for the most part, except for like your EBR series and a couple of other rifles.
Right.
People out their cycle, but they use a hard lock system. You actually have to press a button to disengage it so that it can actually cycle. And when you let the button go, it full on locks into like a full single shot mode. It gives you a better muzzle velocity and better muzzle sound control for when you're using low velocity bullets.
Gotcha.
Andy is describing a bolter. Andy is describing a bolt gun. And for any of you 40K fans out there, that's exactly what a bolt gun does. It shoots out. It's an automatic rifle that's about the size of a 50 caliber that shoots out basically small rocket-propelled grenades. But fires like an
Beautiful.
AK-47.
That's another aspect of this that I discussed previously on one of my shows.
Mhm.
The 50 cal platform not only has different types of like phosphorus, incendiary, and all kinds of those types of round. It's one of the very few shoulder mountable, man portable versions of a round that can actually carry a payload other than just a bullet, right? So you could feasibly develop things like smart rounds for these things because the payload is big enough to hold enough circuitry to make it worthwhile to try. I mean, I know it sounds wild. Or how about
Yeah, that sounds very wild indeed.
I know it sounds wild, but it's a project that was being worked on back in the 90s. DARPA's got its teeth deep in the concept of quote unquote.
Oh yeah, I mean,
smart-
I do recall having read about such things from time to time. So yeah, clearly you ain't lying.
Well, that's what I'm saying is most platforms are so small, it's impossible. But the 50 cal carries a big enough payload for its, oomph that it might be possible to build a high-speed camera rig to be launched, right?
Sure.
'Cause you've got a massive amount of powder to work with on the back end of it.
Throw a little engine in there and make it able to change course.
Yeah, it wouldn't
Sasquatch,
take much.
Sasquatch, let's give the people what they want and show this baby in action.
All
You know
right.
that's all they're really waiting for.
I know, but I'm trying to draw it out because I'm a YouTuber. I do apologize. Like, comment, and subscribe, damn it.
You haven't even seen the
Smash that
painted
like
version,
button.
but you'd like to do that. I know what you want. You want to see the 50 fire.
Don't you, Squidward?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that does give me a special feeling in my trousers.
It's getting tighter by the second. That might be the sexiest thing I've ever seen.
Okay, I've got that on my system for now.
I'm sorry. That's just so American. It's so beautiful.
Oh, I know.
It
Makes me want to eat a hot dog and apple pie at the same fucking time.
While chugging a beer and shooting shots at Jack Daniels under a full moon, right? How about you, Jay? How does it make you feel in your trousers?
I would love to fire that fucking thing, bro. I would
I
absolutely
will
love
own
it.
them.
I've never fired a weapon any more powerful than an AR-15, honestly.
Yeah, I would
Maybe-
carry around that shoulder bruise as a badge of honor.
Oh, most
Right? You're going
definitely.
to dislocate something that first time because it
Yep.
takes a second
Yep.
to get a grip. Like shooting a
Oh,
punch,
man.
man. Ow. Can you imagine? I mean, look at the weight of that bolt, bro. When that thing slides back forward, it jerks all of him forward.
Oh yeah.
Are you
Have you ever
around?
fired a 50 caliber?
I have.
What was that?
I have.
Okay.
It's ugly. That first one, before you realize what you're in for, that first one, if you're not set proper, and I was not,
Mhm.
it might be a couple of days before you're saluting properly.
Honestly, Joker is saying what I'm thinking. Honestly, I want to know what that full auto looks like. To be
Yeah.
honest, that full auto is probably insane.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about the gun. And no, I'm not just talking about, well,
It's black!
yeah, we painted it, but there is something else I think is really cool that we didn't get to talk about because we hadn't done it yet when we did our AK-50 video. Now, when we had the ballistic high-speed guys come down for that video, they did some awesome high-speed shots of the AK-50 firing. But there was something that a lot of people noticed, and it was something that we all noticed right off the bat as soon as we saw the video. The AK-50 barrel whipped like a motherfucker. A lot of people
Damn.
ran into the comments saying, hey, I don't know if you noticed. Oh, trust
We talked about
Yeah, I'm
that.
guessing
on
they
the
noticed.
video. I was like, dude, there's no way this is going to pass muster. They're gonna have to do something with that barrel. There's no way. And glad to hear the man eating his own chops, right? This
Yeah,
is good.
that was like what my dog's tail does when I get home.
Trust me, we fucking noticed. And we knew it did it pretty much immediately. So pretty much any weapon, especially like an AK or something, is going to have a little bit of barrel whip. It's perfectly normal. Does it hurt the gun? No, it does not hurt the gun. As long as it holds zero, not really an issue. But it does look pretty violent, and to be honest, it's pretty unnecessary. As to what caused it, a muzzle brake. This is the muzzle brake that was on the AK-50 when you saw it in the big video. This is a beefier, bigger, well, 50 cal size version of the AK muzzle brake, a great brake in my opinion, the JMac RRD 4C. This is an awesome brake for recoil reduction, and it also works as a compensator. The way that it does this, the way that it stops muzzle rise is you see these vents here on the side of the brake itself. They're actually cut away larger on the top than they are the bottom. And so the point of that is to vent more gas. While it's venting gas out the sides, it's venting more gas out the top than it is through the bottom, meaning that it's going to be not only creating a brake that stops recoil, backward recoil, but it also pushes gas up, pushing the muzzle down. So when you normally have that muzzle climb, it helps keep the muzzle down. We didn't really think about it that much, and we just included it feature for feature, including those cutaway top vents. Not quite as dramatic as on the RRD4C, but we still put them there. What we didn't realize is that this really doesn't need a whole lot of upward compensation. It's mostly rearward recoil. In fact, if you could see the videos of me in that video walking and firing it from the hip, you can very clearly see every time I fire the gun, the compensator is working too well, and it pushes the gun down dramatically. That's exactly what it was doing to the barrel, causing that crazy barrel whip. If the science behind this sort of thing interests you and you'd like to get your start in gunsmithing and weapons technology, you can always check out sdi.edu.
Please do. We definitely need
Yeah,
more
when
people
he was
to
hip
think
firing that
this.
thing, he almost looked like Jesse Ventura in Predator.
Right. Except Jesse Ventura was able to walk into it. Homie here, he's only like 5'9", 5'10". Every step it would cold stop him on his forward progress, and then he'd lean back into it.
Bro, that's a hell of a recoil he's probably having to handle, though.
It is.
Seriously.
It has to be. But
It's gotta
that's
be,
why
bro.
you put it on such a solid, chunky frame. The chunkier the frame, the
Mhm.
less direct recoil, because recoil is over so quick that all it takes is a combination of stiffness and malleability. You just have to
Mhm.
give it just enough to rock back and get back on target. You don't have to catch it, right? You just have to ride it. You have to let it
Mhm.
do what it's going to do and then put it back where it needs to be when it's done. So you have to be loose and stiff like a willow in the wind. Appreciate it,
Yeah.
brother.
Congrats on
Listen,
5K, Squatch.
Did you decide? Yeah, did you decide to ever have a 5K show
I
or a show to
did.
celebrate your 5? You did?
This is
I
it.
did. Okay. As far as the blast radius, yeah, this is it.
Well, damn. All right.
I also did one, I think last Tuesday with AJOT, because it happened that Monday. So
Oh, Joker, no shit, bro. Hold on. Joker apparently is about to graduate from SDI. Good
that's
shit,
cool.
Joker. Good on you, bro.
Yeah, that's awesome. At least you didn't graduate from STD.
You using the links down in the and comment. But now we have a new muzzle brake, one that does not have those cutaways at the top, and is working a hell of a lot better. But the real question is, does it still cause that massive barrel width? But to answer that question, we would need to break out the high speed. Ballistic high speed. I'm going to stop doing that bit one day. That's right. Our friends at Ballistic High Speed came down again to help us out with the Trump assassination attempt recreation video that we did here recently. And while we had them down, not to let their talents go to waste, we also did a couple of shots with the AK-50 in high speed. So take a look at it and tell me what you think of the new break.
Boom. There it is. Dude.
You got to have a motherfucker of a camera to get that shot.
Right? Wow. I mean,
Slow motion
Look at
makes
that.
everything better.
Seriously.
Yeah.
wow. Wow. Okay, I'm
That is a hell of a
sorry.
shot. Make sure you clean up the mess there, Sasquatch.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Imagine how jealous gunsmiths from history would have been by the technology that these guys have available to them today to analyze the performance of the guns they make.
Oh wow. That's so much better.
Reduced. So in the words of a great scholar, great success.
But real quick, this video was made
Yakovich.
possible by our friends over at TacPack. TacPack is a tactical subscription.
I don't care about tech.
I kind of want to watch the Trump assassination video. Can we pull that up?
Yeah.
Not
Give me a
before,
sec.
not before he goes full auto with the rifle, though. Let him go full auto first. Let's see that part.
Yeah, definitely.
We got to do the White Claw
Who put that
penetration
there?
test.
Doesn't take a ballistically minded individual to know that a 50 BMG will pass through a White Claw. So we just put a little pyramid of 5 here, just again showing power of 50 BMG, and because it's awesome. All right, so
Dude,
let's see.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I gotta have to clean up
So I
again.
know-
Did you see that? This man is not a giant. When he went to pull that bolt, he had to pull it all the way back, rock his head to the side to keep from getting poked in the eye by the damn thing. He's like,
Oh, this is zeroed pretty decent for like 50 to 100, but let's see if it's zeroed for like 15 feet. 3, 2, 1.
You all right?
yeah, I'm good. That's just another one.
Another one.
Look how cool that is. That was a
I
neat-
think he's having the same feeling you are.
I wonder if YouTube's going to demonetize everybody involved.
We'll find out.
Let's do it.
2, 1.
Signs point to yes.
Holy fuck!
He just shot a fucking gun.
All right, I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly was not that. I
He's
would
a
say good effect on
madman.
target.
He's absurd. Right? Okay, what was it you were wanting? I'm sorry. The
He wanted to see the
Trump.
Trump assassination video,
Yeah, the video he was referencing where they recreated the
the assassination attempt.
all right, y'all do
Yes.
the entertaining thing for a second. I'll be right back.
I'm sure it's not gonna be that hard to find. I mean, all you gotta do is go to his channel. Man, I can see right now, dude.
I mean,
just
I'm
need
sure,
a second to make
I'm
a
sure it's
section.
toward the top somewhere.
That took no time at all.
Oh, it's right there. It was the last video.
24, an attempt was made on the life of the 45th president of the United States and potentially 47th, Donald Trump. The thankfully failed assassin fired a handful of bullets from an AR-15 off of a nearby rooftop, one of which nicking the president in his right ear. The Secret Service was then able to retaliate with one of their snipers, ending the threat at about 3,200 feet per second. But while this assassination attempt was unsuccessful, it started a whole host of conspiracy theories on the internet and it raised a lot of questions, really, about ballistics, amongst other things. So given that recreating historical assassinations is something that we do quite a lot on the channel, we figured that we might be able to shed some light on some of these subjects that are currently in heavy debate. in the ballistics of the situation. Now, this is the first time we've ever tackled a situation like this where the person in question is still alive, not only
Me?
still alive, but still actively running for president. But I do think we have the capability to add a lot of productive data to the conversation in an educational manner, while also giving the situation the seriousness and respect that I think it dictates. At least as much as we're capable.
Let me introduce Donnie, the Bullet Dodger Trump. Yeet yeet, fellers.
Based.
So the three main
There was a fortuitous 15-degree head turn, that's for damn sure.
I think he saw him. I think he looked straight at that man when he pulled the trigger, and that's what saved his life.
Well, yeah, you've seen the Copenhagen video, right? I mean,
Oh, that was
Trump could have locked eyes with the fucking assassin if he had looked in the direction. It's freaking astounding.
here would have been an instant kill, and that it was faked with blood packets or fucking aliens. I don't know. So we're going to replicate the shot on the ear to show exactly what happens in that situation. Now, the third thing, just because I think it's really cool, we're going to be replicating the return shot on the shooter from the Secret Service sniper rifle. We didn't have to do this, but to be honest, I like the old-fashioned movies where the bad guy gets his comeuppance at the end. So I feel like it's a pretty good finale.
Yep.
And it's going to look hella good in slow motion. And as always, when we do a spicier video like this, my friends are more than willing to help.
Bye, career.
I don't know why the fuck they wanted
Okay.
these. Those
Okay. If y'all didn't catch that, you're looking at about 500,000 or 1.5 million subscribers over here. Like, this is half of
Damn.
GunTube, you know.
Jesus.
And,
Really?
and the fat electrician, he's also over there. He's just off camera there for some reason.
Are most
they
gun
don't like
tubers from Texas?
Well, Texas has some of the most relaxed firearm laws as far as like
Mhm.
Yeah,
buying,
it
selling.
seems like they might be.
And so whether they're from Texas, Kentucky's another one. In Kentucky, you can own a fully automatic rifle if you get the right tax stamps and stuff. But the thing is in Kentucky, they'll actually issue them. Most other states just refuse to have anything to do with it.
Right.
Bad electrician.
4.5 inches difference. You know what's suspiciously 4.5 inches to the left of your right ear? Yeah. Wait. There's air. You absolutely like this dot covered a good chunk of the head at that distance at 130. Yeah, no bipod, super elevated heart rate, no magnification. So a lot of people are saying like, well, yeah, you could just zoom in a scope like Call of Duty, huh? No, it's not. It's not a scope. This is not like a fucking sniper weapon. This right here is a 1 magnification. So it's 0 mag. It's literally just looking through a piece of glass with a dot on it. So yeah, now hopefully you have a better idea of why saying that the ear shot was specifically staged using that setup at like 150 yards is just fucking stupid, frankly. But speaking of fucking stupid, there's another conspiracy theory that, of course, Trump was not hit by a bullet because bullets, expand and they have, a crazy temporary cavity and it would have taken his whole head off and all sorts of shit. And he was hit by flying glass that came from fucking, I don't know. It's Twitter. So we're going to recreate to the best of our ability the path of the bullet going through a small strip of flesh, the ear here, and show exactly what that would do to a human ear. Now, in order to actually capture the bullet as it's grazing through the ear, we would need some serious high speed, maybe even ballistic high speed.
Dun,
Someone said
dun,
high
dun.
I don't know why they keep doing
Why
that.
did you invite us,
It's like a bit or something. I don't know. So 100,000 frames per second. That should be plenty enough to catch a bullet like that because it's traveling at what, 3,000 feet a second?
Roughly. So this will slow down time 3,000 to 4,000 times slower than normal.
Perfect. Well, let's get to it, guys. Let's do it. Now, we don't really care about distance on this one since, the ballistics are going to be negligible. If anything, closer distance should do more damage. So if this just rips right through the ear like it did in real life, then that should definitively prove it. So let's, I just want to make sure we get the most accurate shot possible. Firing.
Did I see a jiggle?
Did you? Oh, I barely clipped the ear. I clipped it right on the side, not on the top. I clipped him like right there in the middle.
We're gonna have to look for like a vibration. Oh,
Yep, there it was.
There it is.
You definitely grazed it here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Whoa.
Right.
Damn.
That was like edge of the bullet.
Yeah, I know. That was. I
This
think we
dude's
could
got
get
some
closer.
badass
Yeah.
cameras.
Yeah, it makes me jealous, and I want to be these people. All right, so let's do some of the re-shoots.
That was it. Oh yeah, that was the fucking money shot right there.
That's a perfect sim there.
How's his head still connected?
I don't know. This
We
is
can't
crazy.
figure it
I don't
out.
think a bullet actually hit him.
Like his neck's not broken. I don't.
Where do you get the glass to
I'm
cut
taking
It
ballistic
didn't
out of
blow
my
his
hand, 'cause
lung
I
out?
clearly don't understand.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Piercing. Yo,
Dude, that's wild.
what'd they say? Don't get your ears pierced at Claire's.
I love how everything they're saying is just throwing shade at conspiracy idiots.
Ow! Anybody else want to say ow with me?
When Trump said it felt like he got hit,
Ow!
the vibration, it'd feel like someone kind of slapped you on the ear.
I was just gonna say I'm actually personally surprised that it had that much temporary cavity, that much expansion.
But notice how the head is still there.
Yeah. If you play it all in full speed, it's like, well, that's very unfucking impressive.
Right.
But
I mean, everybody's making fun of his ear bandage in his speech, saying like, "Oh, he's wearing a big bandage for sympathy or whatever." You just saw his ear explode from decapitation from getting hit by a gun. Like,
yeah, it looked okay because I know he was.
I'm a nurse and I never put on an ear bandage to look like that. Ha 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 ha.
Right? Of course, the classic Tyson Holyfield fight, right?
I was waiting for it.
Right? I'm
When
still waiting.
I think
for him
I think I can make a convincing claim to being the first guy who made an Evander Holyfield joke.
I'm still waiting for him to come out and say, "Friends, Americans, countrymen, lend me your ear," because that motherfucker almost shot mine off.
Ah! God, that's beautiful.
Wait for it. Wait for
Right?
it. Inauguration
saying-
day. Watch. Inauguration day.
His writers are really slacking down on their classical reading.
You got that right.
Got a lot of the vital part of his brain out of the way of that bullet, which is just, I mean, talk about luck. We might be having a very different conversation had that not been the case. I think that is what would qualify as too soon. Speaking of too soon, you want to
And
gank
no
the
thanks
shooter?
to the Secret Service.
So now let's talk about
Right.
something that the Secret Service would have been using to.
You know, I have a wheelchair ramp leading up to my door, and I feel completely secure in the fact that the Secret Service will never show up at my house.
Wow.
Take out the nameless nerd and virgin. This right here is an Accuracy International 300 Win Mag. Accuracy International was like the Lamborghini of bolt guns as far as like not getting something stupid custom done. Very, very nice rifle. I've been shooting this setup a little bit this last couple days. Fucking amazing gun. Better be because they're like 15 grand. Got our 300 Win Mag spicy boys right here. Loaded on up. Keep the bolts open though for now. Got a Badger Ordnance scope mount with a Night Force ATAC scope, topped off with an RRS tripod. These things are very expensive and very nice. I've never really shot with one before the last couple days, and it is amazing. It's really like cheating. Now I know how they were able to pop that shot off so quick and so accurately after the first round was fired. It's a funny story. I bought this whole setup from Euro Optic, and I was not paying very close attention because I knew I needed to get this video out quickly. So I was in a rush. I bought an Accuracy International bolt gun, and I didn't realize I bought the wrong one. I bought one with a left-handed bolt, not super useful to a right-handed shooter like me. I called up Euro Optic, told them the situation. I got somebody on the phone in like 30 minutes. They helped me out. Not because I had a contact there. I was a random customer who spent my own money on this gun, and I fucked up. Their shipping guys got it squared away right off the bat, and I had it in time for the video. Then we told them what we were doing with the video, and they wanted to be a part of it. So they actually ended up sending us out this tripod and really just hooking us up. So we really appreciate Euro Optic for not only just having a great customer service experience, like genuinely I was impressed, but also just for a genuinely good customer service experience and for helping us get all this stuff out here in time to film this video. So we really appreciate Euro Optic for helping us out with this.
Dude, I
Show
get
them
it.
some
They're-
love,
they're
please.
awesome.
Now,
Fucking amazing.
and
All right,
exactly
show me
where he was shot and where it exited. So I'm going to take some creative liberty. I know he was shot in the head. So now we're going to see in about 100,000 frames per second exactly what was going through his head. So he kind of looks like Harry Potter now that I think about it.
why's his teeth so
Oh, get on with
I'm
it,
on-
guys.
I'm gonna cast Yeetus fetus.
This isn't accurate.
I need to carve some of that. Further ado, let's go ahead and take this shot. Firing. 3, 2, 1.
I think you got him.
I think we hit him.
Only difference is, and you would
Outside
know
is-
because Sasquatch, you saw the picture on stream by accident. His head was still attached to his body.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I came in and sat down, was eating some chicken noodle soup. And I looked over at the screen and was like,
You're like, I hope I'm not streaming.
I did check that first. I'm not gonna lie, my mouth was full and
I
I
bet.
couldn't talk.
Wow. Holy shit.
Dang. Yep. 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 Oh, that's a glory shot if I ever saw one.
It looks CGI.
I know. It's beautiful.
Jesus Christ.
It's like perfectly symmetrical. Just
Sell yourself, Jay. We're out of time. You got to do the Jay
guys,
thing.
real quick. Shout out to Andy Pickle, by the way. Yes, they were banned at the Kinema Records. I'm glad we have a fellow sci-fi fan in the chat. Guys, thanks for everyone having me here. A big shout out to Sasquatch. Big shout out to Cap for having me to another edition of the Blast Radius. If you want to see more political content, economic content, geopolitical content, content on socio-political issues, and just general hot topics throughout society, come on over to Jay's Hot Topics on the YouTube, the Twitter, or the Rumble. I cover many things. I'm probably going to start doing some more debates as well, maybe on Fridays, or maybe we'll just have some more open discussions on things that are hot topics in our society that we usually don't talk about. I appreciate you guys for having me here today, and I hope to see you guys again soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius, just as you do faithfully every Sunday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. The pace of events often moves at a dizzyingly rapid speed, but we are here to unpack all of it for you, and we sure do appreciate you being here, as we appreciate Jay for being here. He is a young man who gives a very good accounting of himself, so go over to his channel, subscribe, consume all of his content voraciously. You won't be sorry you did. We'll see you next week. Until next time, do not comply. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?